All right, so here we are. Hey everyone, this is James Wilson with MTB Strength Training Systems and BikeJames.com, and welcome to another BikeJames podcast. This podcast, I have the opportunity to interview strength coach extraordinaire Dan John. Coach, how's it going?
Really well. We just had our morning workout and had breakfast, and then I rushed up here and got my water so I can have an intelligent conversation with you.
Perfect. Yes, I got
on a
my water.
100-degree day. Yes, working
yes,
out.
It is warm in our neck of the woods. So, yeah, how's the home gym going? So you're working out at your home gym, and then do you still have a trainer that you're working with as well?
No,
a couple days a week.
The problem is, because of social distancing, I took a leave. But,
okay.
But now we train. Mike and I are just going to train 5 days a week, and we get some guests. We're pretty good about social distancing. We're pretty good about masks. We're very good about everything. If anybody has a former cancer, of course, a couple of our members have already had it, so we kind of feel like we're doing what we can, but we still got to work out. And
yeah.
I can't. I'm making the best progress I've made in decades, so I don't want to curtail anything.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So again, just for people who don't know, Coach Dan John is a strength coach who's worked with athletes in countless sports. Really done a lot of work with high school athletes, which is some of my favorite work of yours. Special forces, emergency responders, a lot of people whose performance, as Coach puts it, when the lights are on and it's time to perform, people come to Dan John to figure out what's the missing link, what am I missing to help me get to that next level. And one of the things that I really like about Coach is that he is a demystifier in an industry where everybody likes to overcomplicate things. He has a way of explaining things where you're like, oh yeah, well, duh. That makes sense. Of course, there's a difference between understanding it and following it. But I'm really excited to get Coach on because he's been a huge influence on me and my training philosophies ever since the old T-Nation days. I've been reading his books. He's got a new one out called Attempts. Yes. Sorry, I was going blank about halfway through it there. And just a wealth of information, but particularly one of the things I wanted to get him on for was because he was one of the people who really started to open my eyes to the difference between training for fitness and training for health. And so, it really changed the course of a lot of things that I'm doing with and so I wanted to get him on and get his view on this and just kind of, pick his brain on it. So, so Coach, welcome. And just kind of starting there, I guess, when did you start realizing that there was a difference between training for fitness and training for health, and that you might need to start reevaluating, what your goals are based on that?
As a kid, the magazine that everyone read was called Strength and Health. And it's kind of nice because the phrase strength and health is still not bad. I want to train for strength and health. But what happens, and it always happens, is that as time moves on, when cardiovascular system training really moved from basically track and field to this thing they called aerobics, an invented term. A guy made up the name for a book, and the book's called Aerobics. And then, of course, Bowerman came out with this jogging book. Well, now, boy, there's cardiovascular, and now there's strength, and then power. And all of a sudden, things started to break up into these chunks, and all these chunks started their own little migration, and all it did was make for a lot of confusion. So I tried my best a few years ago to break it out as best I can. And we're going to leave one of the terms to the side just for a few seconds. But health is, I use Matthew Tung's definition, the optimal interplay of the human organs. I mean, if your blood pressure numbers are good, you don't have cancer, you don't have any disease that's going to punch you in the face. If your dental health is good, you don't have any issues with your eyes, your blood profiles are good, well, then we can kind of say you're healthy. Now, someone's going to raise their hand and say, well, how fast of a mile should you run? That's not, don't, shish, because that's something else. But people always want this other number. It's like, well, listen, if your blood pressure is 500 over 300 and you can run a 5-minute mile, good for you, but you're a ticking time bomb. Or, you win a triathlon, but you got some cancer floating around in your body, big one that you don't know about. You good for you, you ran did the triathlon, but you're not healthy. The next phrase, let's go in this order, is longevity. And there's a quantity and quality issue there. From what I've seen, the best thing you do is have grandparents and parents who lived a long, long time. DNA is certainly probably 50%. My wife's family, both sides, the Hemingways and the Drurys, I mean, these people don't die. I mean, her grandmother died a couple of years ago at 102. My family, my grandmother died in 1925. So in 5 years, it'll be the 100th anniversary of my grandmother's death. So my family, we don't live long at all. But there's two issues here. So that's the quantity, there's the quality. And for me, when we talk about longevity, it's the quality that I'd like to focus on. And that is when taking good care of your health when you're your age, young, and wear your seatbelt, do those kinds of, don't smoke, floss your teeth, all those little things that add up, pay big dividends when you're in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, 90s, and 100s. And then the third word is the one that most people get screwed up on, that's fitness. And that's the ability to do a task. And there's a difference between fitness and performance. Fitness is you decide, is there a bike trail near your house that's a pretty tough one? Is there a bike trail?
Oh yeah, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a race here every year, the Grand Junction 50 that a lot of riders, kind of put on the calendar as like, this is what we're going to do, train for.
If you jump on your bike today by yourself and finish it, that is a fitness performance. If you do it with 2,000 other racers, that's a performance. Okay, because they called your name, you stepped up, and many people mistake those two. So fitness is the ability to do a task. Performance is when someone says your name and you step up. And I'm much more of a performance coach. So with performance, like for example, if you get a flat tire within the first 50 meters of this thing, you decide to do it, and you say, what the hell, and you throw your bike in the back of your pickup and go home, no one in the world, you don't get a DNF. You go home, repair the bike, and say, I'll do it some other time. Performance, now that's different. That means you're scrambling to fill, you're doing everything you can to get back in the race, right? Yep. And then the fifth one, which I always try to ignore, but this is the most common question, that's fat loss. And I don't even, it's funny because if I write something on fat loss, I get 15,000 views if it's a video, and gets shared by everybody. Fat loss is losing fat, and I agree with Devaney, who said don't get fat in the first place, because it's so much easier not to get fat than it is to undo that. So the reason I wanted to break that out for you, the BikeJames, not to call you BikeJames.
No, that's fine. Yeah, no, that's what people call me. No problem.
Gentle listener, I often reference people to James, and on podcasts and stuff, I call him BikeJames. BikeJames.com. But so what I like to do is make sure there is at least some level of clarity there before we get started. Now, to be an elite performer, you may endanger your health for short periods of time. One time for a weightlifting meet, I went from 273 to 242 in just a few days. Now, was that the healthiest thing I ever done in my life? Well, no, but I had to weigh 110 kilos to compete. Not 110.1, but 110. So I did this thing. And sometimes I'm sure that the health benefits of mountain biking are put into question when you're laying by the side of a rock, bleeding out a little bit, right? So
those moments, yep.
Yeah, so mountain biking is it's good for your health until crash and burn, and it's not so good for your health. So you got to make sure if you can keep those things kind of separate a little bit. But then what you begin to do is once you separate them and define them, then you can see how they interweave with each other. So taking care of your health for 50 or 60 years pays dividends on your longevity. Maybe not the quantity, because a lot of that's just DNA. and luck. My coaches tell me longevity is 10% luck. Not getting hit by the car, not being drafted and going to the war, not not being on the plane that crashes. There is a bit of luck in there. And when you start looking at fitness goals, I know people whose fitness goals interfere with their health and longevity. Because
Yes.
I always joke, not only do they burn the candle at both ends, they take a blowtorch up the middle. So performance. So yes, your health. I mean, if you want to be a great masters athlete, I would tell you to be as healthy as you can in your teen years, your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, because when you show up to masters competition and you're a healthy specimen, you got a notch on some of your competition. So I hope you can see how they all dance together, but it is important when teaching that you separate them out of it.
Yeah, no, I think that's super important. It also goes to something that you talk about a lot is that, well, what do you mean by that? When someone comes to you and says like, I want to, do something, I want to get fitter, or I want to ride faster or whatever. It's like, well, what do you mean by that? And dig a little deeper and kind of find out, well, what exactly are they looking for? And then helping them understand. Again, another thing, the book I was reading yesterday, you were talking about the agony of achieving a goal. And I was like, that is so awesome, because especially as we get older, that's something that we don't really take into account. When you're younger, it's a different mindset. Everything's totally different. When you're in your 20s and you're indestructible and you're not married and you got no responsibilities, and those things are different. But then you get older, you got kids, you've got these responsibilities, you got a body that's got all this wear and tear from doing all these fun things with it. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, I want to achieve these goals. But sometimes there's agony of achieving that goal that we don't take into account. And some of those things relate back to the health and the longevity and stuff. And so anyways, yeah, that's great if you want to kind of touch on some of those things.
Let me explain that to your listeners. Basically, it comes down, it's a quadrant. It's a little chart where you fill in, and on the top you put pain, pleasure. And on the side is making the goal, not making the goal. So here's the thing. Everybody thinks that I will have a ton of pleasure if I make my goal. And we'll start with that one, because and the funny thing is, when I work with athletes, I'll say, what pleasure will you get by making the Olympic team or winning the nationals? It'd be great. So I don't think that's enough to keep you going. If you lose those 50 pounds of body fat, what would be the pleasure in it? It'll be great. Well, and one of the things I try to do is I try to ramp that up. So not only will you look good in your swimsuit, you'll strut in your swimsuit. That's a quote right out of the book. It is true. Sometimes I'll be sitting around and I'll pick up a trophy or a cup or a medal of something from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. My first trophy's from 1967, a year before my wife was born. I'll pick that up and I'll look at it, and there's this little, yeah, I did that. So for me, I try to really build up, make it even better. Okay, and then the other one. What is the pain you will get from not achieving your goal? And that's an easy one. I'll just feel like a failure. My ex-girlfriend will be right. My heart would, okay, fine. The other two are the ones I think are more important. What is the pleasure in not getting your goal? And people are like, wait, what are you talking about? Well, here's the deal, folks. The bulk of the people who try to lose weight on January 1st, the resolution, fail miserably. So there must be some pleasure in not doing a diet and exercise program. No, I'm telling you. Well, Dan, I'll do anything. I hate myself. Then why do you keep coming back to those junk foods, those cakes, those desserts, not showing up at the gym or not doing your daily walk? What is it? That hour of walking has been replaced by watching Netflix. Why? Well, Netflix is more fun than that hour of walk. There's more pleasure in not attaining. And when I go through this one, James, it's weird with someone I'm working with, because it's like they'll just kind of go, well, that's not true. And then all of a sudden they'll kind of catch themselves and like, yeah, it's funny you say that. It is a lot more fun to watch Caddyshack than it is to do hill sprints. Yeah, isn't that funny? It's a lot more fun to eat ice cream out of the tub than it is to chop up peppers, onions, and saute them. It's weird how that is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then, of course, the one that really throws people off, what's the pain in achieving your goals? Well, I know this. If you want to, the number one person who screws up most clients' efforts is the spouse. And talk to any personal trainer, they'll say it's weird. Oh, so if I hire James, James goes home to the lovely Edna, and I say, James, I want you to eat vegetables and everything. Oh, switch it. It's better if I switch it. So James, I'm training Edna, the love of your life. And I say, Edna, I want you to eat vegetables at every meal. And you go home and start, chopping vegetables for breakfast. James will walk in and go, why are you chopping vegetables? Well, Dan says I should have vegetables every meal. Oh, so if Dan said, would you jump off the Golden Gate Bridge? Would you do it? Well, no, but vegetables sounded, oh, so Dan said this. And very often, there's a lot of pain in achieving your goals. If you want your wife to get in the best shape of her life, all of a sudden people are going to look at your wife more. If you decide you want to be on an Olympic team, there's going to be you're not going to be able to go to a lot of parties. In the book, I joke about, I think I'm the only adult in the 1970s to have never gone to a disco. I never went to a disco, not one time.
Yeah, you were training. For people that don't know, you were a national champion discus thrower.
Not
correct?
at the time, but later, yeah.
But
I was a very, very good thrower, and and I felt that my nightlife should be sleeping. And I did carbo load on cores. I will say that I did use serious carbo load on cores, but it's hard. So when you break it down like this, what I'm trying to do by talking about the pain and pleasure of both getting and not getting your goals is so the person begins to see their own personal roadmap, not the future, but the one they had in the past. Almost everybody has goals. I mean, some are easier than others. Graduating from kindergarten is slightly easier than some other goals, like throwing the discus over 200. But everybody has been in the process of goal setting, and many people go, you know what, you're funny, you said that. I wanted to start my own rock band, but then I had to learn how to do an instrument. And I'd much rather just, act like I was in a rock band, grow my hair out and smoke dope and hang out with my groupies. But the effort of learning how to play the guitar, it just wasn't there for me. So that's a major lesson in my life.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that, like I said, especially for, me as I got older and my priorities changed, how there started to be more agony involved with achieving some of my goals.
Yeah.
And making, just understanding that friction and making peace with it is kind of part of that process of moving forward, I guess, as an older athlete. And so, yeah, I guess, I'd say like that's one of the big mistakes. I mean, do you kind of see some other major mistakes or things that older athletes make, with their training or how they approach their sport, with this kind of idea in mind of, longevity and health and all that versus fitness?
Well, I think it's a well overquoted thing, but in the martial arts tradition, at first a kick is a kick, and then of course when you stand long enough, a kick becomes a kick again. When we talk about how to be a great discus thrower, Coach Mon told me, you lift 3 days a week and you throw 4 days a week, for the next 8 years. And the problem is, well, I want the fast track. Well, 8 years later, after all the injuries and all the stupid stuff you do, you sit down one day and you start lifting 3 days a week and throwing 4 days a week, and miraculously you get better. And it's like, I knew this in the beginning. Yeah, very often, every sport, every discipline has this very fundamental, very basic, very boring, like little list of things you need to do. But it's never sexy enough. It's never groovy enough, and I would say the hardest lesson and it goes right back to Devaney's point of don't get fat in the first place. The best fat system I know is to stay. Of course, I used to say going into college, but now I realize that our obesity epidemic is more middle school. But if you can stay lean in middle school, lean in high school, don't put on that freshman 40, please. Pizza, folks, pizza and beer is not optimal, okay? Every day for 3 meals a day. And you can stay lean in your 20s, it's like the magic happens, man. You know, you just don't, hang on, this thing, I gotta.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. My phone is always going. But if you can hold back on getting as fat as you possibly can at 21, you're going to be fine. And you tell that to people, and it's like, yeah, but I did get fat, so what do I got to do? Can you give me a 2-week program? It's like, oh my God, it took you 4 decades to get here. Can I have like 4 weeks to get back to you? You know? So it is,
yeah.
It's frustrating, but it is a part of not only, I wouldn't say human nature, but American nature, that I want the secret, I want the quick loss, I want the quick thing. And the truth is, there are no secrets, and the fastest route is the slowest route.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's actually one of the things that I got from doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've been doing that for the last almost 8 years. And I've got a lot of really good insights from that have helped me with mountain bike training. And one of the things I love about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is it takes 10 plus years to become a black belt. And so the first day you step on the mat, they're telling you like, hey man, just relax. You got 10 years. And even then, that's not the end of the journey, right? It's the complete opposite of like how the fitness industry approaches things. We got 6 weeks to whip your ass into shape, you know, versus like, hey man, just relax, enjoy the process. Because they understand like if you're not here in 10 years, you can't get that black belt. So if we destroy your, you know, your confidence and stuff in the beginning, trying to get a lot out of you as a white belt, then you're never going to make the black belt. And so I see this in mountain biking. People come in and they're like, man, if you're not, you know, one of the top riders in your riding group in the first 6 months, like something's wrong and you need a new bike and, you know, some blah, blah, blah. And it's like, holy crap, you've been riding for 6 months. You're supposed to suck. Like, it's fine. Just relax. So yeah, I think that's a big lesson for people just in all areas of life, is that there are no quick fixes. Like there is no fast track to being a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, because the black belt is on the mat. Like eventually you're going to have to slap hands. It's not all katas and breaking boards and stuff like that. Like you're going to have to slap hands with another black belt, and you're going to have to show like, man, yeah, you got the skills. So there are no shortcuts to that point. You know, you can get hacks to look like you're, you know, doing other things better, but that's one of the beautiful things about jiu-jitsu, man, about grappling in particular, is it's such a pure track and field is the same thing. It's such a pure, you know, thing. It's so unfuzzy, right? And so, yeah, but that's, like I said, man, that's one of the big lessons for me that I've gotten from jiu-jitsu that I've tried to, you know, help instill in the mountain biking world as well. Is like, hey man, just relax. It's part of the process. You know, there are no quick fixes. You know, you have to learn how those three things, right? You talk about, you know, in mountain biking, it's cornering, it's standing pedaling, especially on climbs, and then it is your high tension cardio, your ability to recover quickly from a hard effort. And these things just take time. Yeah.
Just real quick, listener, I have this theory that I always ask people, what are the 3 keys to performance? And James was kind enough to share that with us years ago, I think now, about what are the 3 keys to mountain biking. And when you break things down to just the 3, now there's all that other stuff and you need to learn it. But if you focus on those pillars, good things happen. It's honestly simple. I don't know. Did you get a chance to read the new book by any chance?
I'm about halfway through it.
Okay. At the end of the book, my daughter Lindsay does the about the author thing, and she said something that really resonated with what you said. If you fail miserably at a track meet, I don't give you a long speech if you're angry. I tell you this sentence. Are you ready? You're not good enough to be frustrated. Now, if you've been throwing 8 years, 15,000 throws a year, and your fingers have bled because your throwing fingers have bled because you threw so much, and then you had to tape them up and throw some more, and then you've gotten not only sunburn but frostbite training. You've walked around with trench foot because so much mud is in your shoes. Then if you throw a big throw out of bounds, then you can drop the F-bomb and make a show. I'm fine then. I don't want to hear it after 3 weeks. I don't want to hear that you're frustrated after 3 weeks, man. 3 years, I'll allow you a little bit of swearing. 12 years, I'll allow a lot of swearing. You're not good enough to be frustrated.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a good point. It's funny how those things line up, man, like that 10-year mark, and just because now in jiu-jitsu, I think about things like 3-4 years, you're a purple belt, and same thing in jiu-jitsu, like that's about the same time when it's like, all right, now we're expecting something out of you. Like you can, complain a little bit, but before that, like you're a white belt, you're a blue belt. It's like, dude, just shut up and get the reps in. Like there's so many reps between now and figuring it out. Just shut up and get them out of the way. Sort of thing. Everyone wants to overanalyze everything, and it's like, I got to be perfect right off the bat. And it's like, no, just to take that pressure off of you. It's all, societal and in your head and stuff. But that's, different. But that's one of the things I like about, your stuff is that you look at strength training from such a philosophical standpoint. I mean, you got a pretty unique background. I mean, you're a religious studies scholar. You spent some time in the Middle East as a Rhodes Scholar, yeah.
Fulbright, my God, the Rhodes.
Fulbright. I'm sorry, man. Listen, I'm not smart enough to know the difference. Okay, it's an insult to me, not to you or them.
Yeah.
So I apologize. That is the fact that they let people like me even know that those things exist is kind of them. But anyways, that philosophical background that you bring to the strength training stuff is something that I really enjoy. I guess if you wouldn't mind just kind of talking about that a little bit and just kind of some of the I don't know, what are some of the kind of the top lessons or takeaways that you've gotten from these other areas for strength training?
Aristotle had a sign on his wall of his academy: if you don't understand geometry, don't come in. I honestly think that geometry is probably the most important thing you can study as a strength coach or as a track and field coach. Now, because so many of the things are proofs. Here are your givens, here's what you need to prove. And there's deductive and inductive logic. So I've got this new website, Dan John University, and the very first thing we ask you on the workout generator is, what equipment do you have? Now, that sounds pretty simple, right? And yet I'll look at programs people send me, and there's a need for, I have probably one of the best equipped home gyms in the world. I got 3 Olympic bars, 26 kettlebells, every farmer carry thing in the world. I mean, bags and farmer bars, every Highland game implement, including a caber, every track and field implement, and many of them. I mean, I've got 2 different hip thrust machines. I got everything. So when I look at some of these workouts people send to their clients online, it's like, listen, I couldn't do that in my home gym, and I got the best home gym in the world-ish, So number 1, what do you have? Number 2, how many days a week? Number 3, how long do you want to go? So those are your givens. And if you say you want to work out 5 days a week and you have a single 24-kilo kettlebell and a jump rope, well, okay. Okay, great. In fact, that's not bad. We can put together a pretty good workout. So there's your givens. And from there, where to go to the prove. And you said you want to get in maybe better shape or whatever it is, but it's the givens first. And then we go from there. In theology, if you believe in one God, that's your given. And from there, issues come up. Like, for example, if a baby dies, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, if you believe in 365 million gods, that's a much easier question to answer. One of the gods who doesn't like you got you. But you got to always start with the givens. So it's funny because in philosophy, geometry, theology, we always start with the givens. As a strength coach, I'm a big believer in the givens. So let's review what we've discussed in the past. James, is like, I asked you, what are the 3 keys to being a good mountain biker? And you said cornering, stand up, and what was the third one? I'm sorry.
It's like your high tension cardio, that ability to,
Weird,
yeah.
weird cardio that you guys have to have where you're pumping your legs and your upper body's holding basically a plank, right? Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, those are the 3 big ones. Okay. I wouldn't want, okay, oh, here's another. Do you have a bicycle? Before we go ahead on this, and I'm actually kind of serious here. I would not
Yes.
be surprised if you have not had 1 or 2 people ask you who did not have a bike to ride. I wouldn't be
I
surprised.
haven't had that, but I had a guy who wanted to be a downhill mountain biking champion who lived in New York City. And I had to explain to him the logistical problems that come with that goal versus location. But I know exactly what you mean. He didn't take his givens into account before he started looking at his goals.
James, I had a guy email me not long ago. He goes, Dan, I want to do your Big 21 program. So that's clean and press, snatch, and clean and jerk. Okay, 3 days a week for 3 weeks, 9 total workouts. And he goes, the only thing is I don't have an Olympic bar. Well, so how you can't? He was so far away from the most basic of the givens, but he didn't have an Olympic bar and wanted to do 3 weeks of Olympic lifting. And he wanted to do it with a kettlebell. Well, you can't add 1 kilo to a kettlebell,
Right.
And I don't even know what the exercises would be, but
It's a different workout. That's a different thing.
just do a kettlebell workout for God's sakes. So when we start there with this idea of givens, it's strange to say this out loud, but I just took you back to theology, philosophy, and geometry. So that's the way my head works. In fact, my daughter thinks it's funny to mess with me. And my buddy Jim always says that I have to always go back to in the beginning to answer any question. Because I'm always concerned that you're not understanding, okay, how do we start today? I differentiate between health, fitness, longevity, performance, and then we tossed in fat loss just because everyone would talk about it. But I feel if we don't make sure we understand the clarity of how they're different and then bring them back together, I feel like you're going to miss the basic points. So yeah, sometimes my performance has impacted my health in a negative way. Lots of my friends who got very good in performance are dead now because they chose to do certain things that would make them perform better, but it had a health and longevity consequence. So you can't say discus throwing kills you, but you can say that, yeah, so you follow what I'm trying to, you feel a dance with these kinds of things. That's why I thought your isometric stuff with the judo belt or the martial arts belt was such a good idea. I think mine cost me $18 or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Really reasonable. But if I was going to do BMX racing, and I would want to invest my money in better bike storage, bike carriers, right? Better protective gear.
Yep.
And then buy an $18 judo belt to get my strength workouts in. And then later get myself a kettlebell, wherever you head from there. Mm-hmm. Yes, that is I think where my religious studies and theology background helps. And it also helps me understand people just a little bit better. I'll just give the one, I usually talk about this one thing a lot, but 100 years ago, there was a poem, "Waken lords and ladies gay, on the mountain dawns the day." There's a song that says, "Don we now our gay apparel." Well, a steno symbol is when a word or a concept has a single meaning. Well, in 2020, the word gay doesn't mean happy anymore like it used to. It has a different meaning now. Okay, so hold on to that. In my world, when I say weightlift, I get single bicep pose. I say I'm going to go in the gym, single bicep pose. If you ask my grandson Danny, what does grandpa do in the weight room? He'll give you the single bicep pose. So the steno symbol right now in weightlifting is bodybuilding. So with my background in theology, religious studies, religious education, I was able to come up with an ability to say that to people, and they go, Well, no, I'm a high jumper. Okay, then why are you doing curls? Because according to Newton, building that upper body is going to actually, it's action reaction. You have more added mass. I don't know if it's going to take a centimeter off or not, but if it comes down to a centimeter, even though you got the big guns, you didn't jump any higher. So, but they want to look good. And that's why an interesting thing, I never program for men bench press or arm work because I know they'll always will do it. And for females, I never program flexibility or ab work because I know they will do it. And so having that word steno symbol from theology really cleared up my ability to teach weightlifting and its appropriate role in sports and fat loss and everything else. So yeah, it's strange to say that, but I read interesting things yesterday about Steve Jobs took a calligraphy class, and it was because of the calligraphy class that he learned about balance, and that's why you don't, after a sentence, you don't go. So if you type after a period, you go space, space. Well, because he took a calligraphy class, he decided to have so you know how computers now, you don't need it at spaces correctly?
Yeah.
He decided to have so many more fonts. It all comes from Steve Jobs taking a calligraphy class. And it makes the work we do now, I mean, when I was young, one of my neighbors worked at a newspaper. He was the guy who put the letters into print. And he was a master at spacing out words so they fit in the columns. Well, that's a job that doesn't exist anymore. Why? Because Steve Jobs took a calligraphy class.
Huh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I hope you're making my point. My point is, sometimes it's the best thing you can do, gentle listener and James, is get outside your magic little box, and you'll be shocked how taking a class over here or studying this over there completely changes the way you approach what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
You don't even know what you don't even know.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I'm a huge believer in that. Like I mentioned before, how Jiu Jitsu's influenced my understanding of pressure and angles and how they apply to mountain biking. There's a book called Where Good Ideas Come From, and they talk about this concept called the adjacent possible. And it's basically where, like, you get all these different insights and experiences and skills, and like you're saying, like you don't want them all in one area, right? And so eventually you get this unique view of the world that only you have, right? Like I would say, like no one else has Dan John's view of the world. Like you have a very unique view of the world and of strength training, and it's all because of these different experiences and things that you've had. But then that's what gives you the ability to, connect with people and have these insights, because you're standing at this adjacent possible, peering over the edge of like, what's next? What's possible? What's the next possible thing in strength training, or how I explain this, or where this evolves. And so, that's I'm a huge believer in that. And that's one of the reasons I enjoy your work so much, because I can tell like you have such a unique view of the world, because you do have all these different insights that come into it.
Let me share a new experience for you. It's kind of odd. But for years, I thought one of the most important things an American football coach could do was first learn tic-tac-toe and then study like strategy and tactics. There's a great course on great courses called Strategy and Tactics, and then learn the game of chess. Well, here's the funny thing. Tic-tac-toe, I still agree with that. Studying strategy and tactics. But now with the modern game, chess doesn't work anymore. But you know what does? The game Connect 4. You know the game Connect 4? Connect 4, all of a sudden, your opponent will drop the chip or whatever, whatever it is, and you'll look and you'll see that they got 4 in a row. And you'll think, how did I miss that? How did I miss that? So you play another game and you begin to see this bigger pattern. What I like about the game Connect 4 is every time a chip drops, unless you're playing someone who's just terrible, just going out of the way to be stupid, every time a chip drops, the dynamics of the game changes, which is exactly the way American football has evolved since they've modified the offensive pass rules and really hamstrung the defenders. And I said that to a couple coaches, and at first they're like, my kids play Connect Four. And I said, I'm going to tell you something. I want you to just play a couple of games and lose. And when you lose, I want you to sit back and go, how did I miss that? And then I followed up and said, how often have you been in a game and you forgot to teach something? And then you say to yourself, how did I miss that? Because when you go back and you look at the film of the game, you're like, oh, it's so obvious. And that's why I think Connect Four is such a delightful way to teach strategy and tactics to American football coaches. And so it's no one gets hurt, no one gets punched in the mouth, there's no offensive and defensive penalties, no one gets heat stroke or heat exhaustion. Fairly safe practice, okay? But the idea, what I'm trying to get across is, this is my vision of how I do things. I was playing Connect Four with my grandson, Danny, and he beat me, and I went, how did I miss that? And then it took me back to coaching. This is a long time. This being the mid-'80s. And what made me a better American football coach is that it was when I realized that we were missing situational plays. We weren't practicing. We were just running plays. We weren't doing things in the real world, like 3rd and 15. Running in a practice, running a 3rd and 15 play is radically different than just running a bunch of plays in a row. Yeah, and so I began to become a much better coach, and I'll still use the word the chess match of football, but now it's more the Connect Fourness of it. Is my goal was to get rid of all those how did I miss that points, and I began to, at the time, I wish I had kept them. I had all these you young kids wouldn't even know what I'm talking about. So I had these manila folders, okay, and on the manila folder I just would write in situations. Like on the kickoff, there might have been, nowadays I would have it laminated too. So you could use them, but there's probably 10 would be a reach, 10 kickoff scenarios, okay? James goes to kick the ball, hits the top of it, and it only goes 6 yards, okay? That's a live ball. We can't touch it, they can. If they touch it, we get a chance to recover it. Now, that might only happen once every 3 or 4 years, but if we practice it, we're ahead of you. And because, how did I miss that? Well, we're not going to miss it because I'm going to give the special teams coach this folder. And on the first time we practice it, we're going to practice maybe 3 scenarios. Next time, another 3 scenarios. Next time, another 3 or 4, and then just rotate those practices. We're not just going to kick the ball off perfectly every time and do a kickoff. We're going to do all the weird things that can happen. And that is a great insight in the coaching of any team sport or any strategy sport. For example, in your world of racing, do you have to pass people?
Yeah, there's some disciplines where you got to deal with passing people for sure.
How often do you practice?
Exactly. You know what I like? Here's enduro racing is real popular. So enduro racing is where it could be a 2-day thing, and you'll ride to a point, and then you get time from point A to point B, and then you ride to another point, and you get time from point A to point B, and you'll do like 3 to 5 of those one day, and then you'll do more the next day, and you're only scored on how fast you went from point A to point B, and then you add up those different points. So your transfer time, as they call it, between stages isn't timed. It doesn't matter how fast you go. But then you talk to people and you're like, hey, how do you train for an enduro race? Well, I just go out and ride hard. It's like, that doesn't sound like an enduro race to me at all, So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So
if passing people is an important part of your sport, you need to practice passing people.
Yeah.
If I become a track and field coach, and it seems like that every couple of years, I swear I'll never do it again. But one of the things I'll do with my athletes, especially plus 400 meters, is have them practice getting boxed in, practice coming around the pack and accelerating. Practice these things that you can. Why do you have to wait until the state championship to learn how to get out of a box? No, that should be, that's why with discus throwers, any thrower actually, we often practice what we call a one throw competition. Sometimes you foul your first 2 throws and now your career rests on 1 throw. Well, if all you do when that happens is pee down your pants, that's not the most effective way to become an elite thrower. But if I practice week in, week out, we do that 1 throw competition, we practice aiming, we practice all kinds of things. When the pressure of that situation hits you, you have a system prepped for it. I had an athlete, it certainly was far more gifted than any athlete ever had. Really could have been a much better, but he got down to 2 throws in the state championship with fouls. And then on his 3rd throw, the only fair throw he got, he threw a personal record. Well, I mean, that's just money in the bank, but because we had trained that situation. So yes, you're right. So it comes down to cornering, it comes down to tall pedaling, and it comes down to that weird kind of cardio you guys have. But you also have to practice cutting inside somebody, going around somebody, being in a pack, right? There's times you're in a pack and somebody breaks funny, and you got to practice that stuff. And maybe you practice it, and maybe the workout one day is, you ask a buddy to just go in front of you down the hill, and you practice going around guy in the hill. Have him go in an absolute straight line. Just get used to it. I don't know what I'm talking about, James. I honestly don't. But I know that.
No. You're absolutely right. It's understanding the situations that you have to deal with when it's time to perform, and then practicing those things. And then so that is kind of the take home message, is that anybody can perform when things are perfect. Well, it's much easier to perform when things are perfect, but it's who can keep it together when the wheels are falling off, or somebody does something that, is usually unexpected, but you've drilled, you've trained for this sort of thing. So that, again, it reminds me a lot of jiu-jitsu, man. You run into that in jiu-jitsu all the time. Someone will get you with a move, and you'll be like, man, how did he do that? How did I miss that? And then you will get an answer to it, and you'll drill that answer, and then they'll have an answer for that answer. And that's, like, for me, that's what makes jiu-jitsu so much fun, is because the problems never end. The problems for riding a bike faster, they're pretty well, we know what they are, right? It's how, and you got to get better at them. But with jiu-jitsu, there's so many different things all the time that it definitely keeps you mentally stimulated. But it's so anyways, but it's fun to do 2 things like you're talking about earlier, the insights you get from different things. So I do know that you have another podcast coming up here soon. So I want to go ahead and start wrapping this up. But I wanted to say that out of all of the books that you've written, my favorite, the first one, Never Let Go. I mean, that's a classic. There's just so many great things in there. Good workouts. So many of the workouts that you refer to still, you first, and that was a collection of articles from T Nation, wasn't it? Basically, a lot of them.
I just wanted to make sure it all was in print. And don't forget, that was a vanity press. That was 432 copies. That was a vanity press.
Yeah.
And sold 17,000 the first weekend or something.
Yeah. That's a classic. And then Easy Strength, I think, is a must read for anyone, but especially if you're an older athlete, just understanding the concept of,
don't forget,
of how to get.
In attempts, there's a whole, I rewrite Easy Strength as clear as I can in attempts.
Oh, okay. Perfect. That's awesome. Even better. So you guys can get all the newest insights and stuff.
Come back soon and just maybe spend an hour talking about Easy Strength?
No, man, that'd be great. I'd love to get you on and talk about that.
You have to read the rest.
Yeah.
And let's bounce off ideas specifically for your audience. But in addition, let's also spend some quality time going through when a program like mine or any of mine are appropriate. And sometimes they're just not. For example, now, you know, I'm going to turn 63 in a couple days. You know, I need more hypertrophy work. So I need more 3 sets of 8 with a minute rest of, and, you know, a little bit of, God and guns, and so it's important, I think, for people to start to again, like I separated health, fitness, longevity. Sometimes you need to go, no. This is really appropriate here. Stupidest thing you can ever do there. And this, yeah, it can help you, but why don't you just go with this path, which is the path that really works? You know? Well, listen, I do have to jump, okay?
Yep. And danjohnuniversity.com is the new website. You got a lot of awesome stuff there. What is it? You're doing a special right now, right, for people?
Well, yeah, please. Gentle listeners, as long as we got the virus impacting us, it's $29 for 3 months. If you just type in the name Corona in capitals when you sign in. It's usually $29 a month, but hey, man, when times are tough, good people help out. Okay?
Yeah. Exactly. Perfect. Awesome. I appreciate your time. I will let you go. And, I'll be in touch soon.
All right. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Coach. Bye.